Theodore Roosevelt once said, "This country will not be a good place for any of us to live in unless we make it a good place for all of us to live in." I agree. I believe if we met the responsibilities we owe to each other as citizens, we could make this a better place for all of us to live in. It's up to us as a nation if we want to live in a country full of conflict and indifference or in a fair and peaceful one. If we start now, we can do this by showing responsibility, respect, and support for our fellow citizens. Welcome judges, teachers, and fellow contestants. My name is ADELLE ZLATEVA, and this is my patriotic speech. To begin with, we have been given many rights in this country that many others don't have. But this means that we must have responsibility for those rights and others, one of which is the First Amendment, which allows us to write and speak freely. With this right, we must follow certain obligations to better our nation for ourselves and others, such as helping out in local communities, serving on juries, and obeying the law. We also have the responsibility of looking out for our fellow citizens. We have diversity in our democracy, which means we have to look out for each other's rights and make sure everyone is treated equally. We as a society, a race of beings, must look out for one another so the better our nation will be as a whole. Next, we must have courtesy and respect for our fellow countrymen. We have the freedom to choose whether or not we practice our religion, without the government or anyone being able to establish an official religion, which means there's diversity and everyone needs to be treated with respect, whether they do or don't practice a religion. We also need to respect the different opinions everyone has, especially when it comes to voting for who leads and represents our country. For now and many years, we as a nation have been divided in who we want as leaders. We're used to resorting to shouting arguments over the people we choose to support. We not only need to respect each other's opinions, but also respect cultures, ethnic groups, and religions. Last but not least, we must support our fellow Americans. We have evolved into working and supporting in a group. But this means that every citizen needs to do their job, whether that means supporting locally by helping out your neighbors or supporting the nation by helping others in need. I believe it shouldn't take some huge natural disaster to bring us all together. We should always take care of one another to benefit our country. Now more than ever, is it important to take care of one another in a pandemic. We should always carry the consideration of other people's well-being in our mind, because it isn't only about ourselves. It's about the people we love and care for the most to feel supported. In conclusion, there are many ways we owe our fellow citizens, but showing responsibility, respect, and support isn't going to make it a better place for all of us to live in if we don't all contribute. The happiness and safety of our fellow citizens is what's most important now. I believe Theodore Roosevelt's quote should not be overlooked. We need to pay attention to what it means for us and our country. And what that means to me is that we must all assist one another, have duty for others and the privileges we have, and be courteous to our fellow countrymen. Thank you.
Hello everyone, judges, contestants, and our guests. Today in my patriotic speech, I will be talking about a quote written by Martin Luther King Jr. In his quote, he wrote that, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." By him saying this quote, I would like to notice that he was one of the most influential and greatest people of history. And I'm speaking on this topic because I personally like to speak on topics of civil rights and justice. It is personally a very important topic to me and, of course, a lot of other people. April 16th, 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. was in Birmingham jail. When he was in Birmingham jail, he sent out a letter to the public that, in his letter, he wrote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects everyone indirectly." But why exactly was he in Birmingham jail in the first place? To simply put it, he spoke up. Rosa Parks, a black woman of color, was told to sit in the back of the bus to make room for whites. When she refused to move, she was arrested. After this, MLK heard about the situation and decided to speak up about segregation and civil rights. Then, after this, he was thrown in jail for just trying to protect his and other rights, for not only just being an American, but also being a human being. In his letter, what he fully meant to say was that if one person or group is treated differently, then no one at all is treated the same. This stands true because no matter what, if the majority is the same, that one odd one out makes all of them different. In the present, we need to look at where we are at with civil rights. For example, the Black Lives Matter movement. In this movement, it is made to empower Black people of color's voices on certain topics, such as police brutality. And a couple cases more well known are George Floyd, who was killed May 25th, 2020, and another one would be Daunte Wright, who was killed April 11th in 2021. And what exactly would this have to do with Americans as a whole? What it has to do with us is that we as Americans all have the right to liberty and justice, but some of these rights are either never given or stripped from other people. And this has to do with Americans as a whole, because we should all be able to understand that we need to help others who have been stripped from these rights and who were never even given these rights in the first place. Thank you all for hearing my speech, and thank you for coming.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Greetings, peers, judges, and fellow contestants. My name is GIANNA Gutierrez, and we say the pledge every day with our hands over our hearts. But do we really know what it means? Liberty, freedom from arbitrary government or control, independence. We have the liberty to speak our minds and express ourselves, practice any religion, and men and women can vote for whoever they feel best represents them and their beliefs without fear of being persecuted by our government. These are some of the bigger examples of what liberty means. This speaks to me because my parents grew up in different countries, spoke different languages, and were born into different religions. The liberties offered to us by the United States made it possible for them to get married without fear of breaking any laws. Justice, fair treatment, peace, and respect for people. Justice speaks to me because I want to be treated fairly, equal, and with respect, like everyone else, regardless of my ethnicity, race, and religion. Justice and liberty give us rights other countries wouldn't allow. My mom and both sets of my grandparents are immigrants who came to America looking for a better life. And when they came, they too recited the Pledge of Allegiance when becoming naturalized U.S. citizens, not only to show respect, but also an appreciation to our country for taking them in. Both sets of my grandparents and my mom have shared their stories with me of what life was like growing up in their countries. Listening to their stories made me appreciate the United States, as well as the life that I have here, much more than I already do. I also have an uncle who was in the military and served our country. He served in the Marines. I am very lucky to have been born here because now I have lots of rights and freedom. The pledge is a promise that we make to our country. We promise to be loyal to the United States and to serve our country when called to do so. We need to treat each other with respect, the way we would all like to be treated, and provide a helping hand when we see others who are in need. Every morning, the students and teachers at Oakwood Elementary School say the Pledge of Allegiance to show respect to our country. However, school is not the only place where we can show respect. Lots of people have flags at their homes and even at their jobs. A big way to show patriotism is by thanking a veteran or those currently serving in our military. In other words, the pledge is a way to show respect and loyalty to our country. Liberty and justice for all. Those words inspire me and others because it shows how we are given lots of privileges and how we should be grateful for that, especially because other people in different countries don't have the same rights as us. Thank you for listening.
Have you ever listened to a song and listened deeply to the lyrics and the meaning? Have you ever felt inspired by song lyrics? There are many songs that have deep meaning and show patriotism. Have you heard the amazing song, God Bless the USA by Lee Greenwood? To me, this song has a strong meaning, uplifting message, and truly makes you think about our country and all the dark times we as a country have been through. This song shows a lot of patriotism. The strong lyrics go, and I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
These lyrics are inspiring and make me think of our duty as citizens. How can we gladly stand up? One important and famous man who stood up for what is right is Martin Luther King Jr. He openly saw injustice and did whatever he could to make things right. As a brave citizen, he worked hard to make his country a better place. Men and women in the military have died so that we can be free. Let me introduce you to a brave person who stood up. My great-grandpa Levin Farron. He is a veteran who fought in World War II. Before the war, he was driving with his girlfriend, listening to the radio, when he heard about the Pearl Harbor attack. The first thing that went through his head was, I have to go fight for my country. Leaving his family and beloved girlfriend behind, he went to go fight in a war. He would not marry her before he left, knowing not many soldiers came back. Through bravery and many struggles and trials, he eventually came back after fighting in the war, and recently he just celebrated his 100th birthday. I learned at his celebration that he, many times as a pilot, ordered his crew to evacuate while he stayed with the plane to ensure their safety. My great-grandfather is a great example of the lyrics, and I'll stand up next to you and defend her still today. This outstanding song is most played around the 4th of July. What happened on July 4th? On July 4th of 1776, also known as Independence Day, the Second Continental Congress collectively approved of the famous Declaration of Independence. These lyrics demonstrate standing up for what is right as a country, just like the people involved in the Revolutionary War and those who wrote the famous documents to come. These outstanding lyrics have a strong meaning. Are we, as a people of the United States, proud to be Americans? What makes me proud to be an American is knowing all the brave men and women that have died for me to be free. If we see something unfair, will we stand up? There are so many amazing examples in history. Another example is the famous Rosa Parks. She saw the unfairness in the seating arrangements on a local bus and chose to stand up against it, no matter the cost. All the way back to 1776, Alexander Hamilton stood up against the Redcoats and helped fight in the Revolutionary War. He wrote the Federalist Papers in his ambition to make our country a better place. George Washington led soldiers along the battlefield in the duty to make our country free. Abraham Lincoln stood up for civil rights to continue the process of all the country to be free. These are just a few examples of the many people who have fought for justice. The lyrics, and I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me, make me think of some of the dark times of America. There was so much bloodshed just for our country to be free. This song truly makes me think of how blessed and privileged we are to live in the United States. Do we love our country? I love my country because of the freedoms and liberties we have. I love our country because amid trials, we all come together and stand up. While our country was under attack through 9/11, we all came together, helping each other out, standing in line to donate blood. Listening to this song makes me think of how brave our country is, and that genuinely makes me proud to be an American. Thank you.
Imagine this. You're in a world where you do not have the ability to choose your own path in life, you do not have the rights to say how you feel about something, and you can't choose your political leaders. Well, in the United States, you have these rights. Welcome, students, judges, and family. My name is Christian Trotter, and today I'm going to be talking about what liberty means to me and what it may mean to other people. Liberty is having the rights to be able to make your own decisions in life, having freedom of speech, and having your own political beliefs. I personally believe that having the ability to make your own choices means that you're allowed to practice and express your religion to others without being questioned or punished. Also, you're allowed to choose your own career path without being forced into a job you do not want to be in, and you're allowed to choose who you want to marry. Having the freedom of choice is a prime example of liberty. Another aspect of liberty is having your own freedom of speech. This means you can ask questions about your society and life to help further your knowledge of the world. We can help educate people about problems that are currently happening in our society. For example, one of the big problems of our world right now is global warming. Since we have freedom of speech, we can present our different viewpoints on this issue. People can ask questions about it to help make advancements in life to fix these problems. Having people express their different ideas and solutions can help make our world a better place. My other idea of liberty is having our own political beliefs. An example of this is we have the choice to choose who we want to elect in office that we believe will help our nation the most. If we do not agree or think the person in office is doing their job correctly, we can protest, vote them out of office, or impeach them. Then we can elect someone new into office. Unlike Serbia, people who are protesting their president, Aleksandar Vučić, are being punished. According to the article Reactive, protesters in Serbia are being arrested for saying they want to remove Aleksandar Vučić from office. While being arrested, these protesters are being put in chokeholds, receiving jackboot beatings, cavalry charges by police units, and being tear gassed. People should not be tortured for saying what they believe in politically. These actions do not represent the liberties of the United States. I believe everyone has the same basic understanding of liberty because we all express our rights in different ways. And that is okay, because we all have the freedom to make our own choices in life. Having the freedom to be different shows that we use these 3 rights of liberty every day. Liberty is having the ability to make your own choices in life without judgment, sharing your opinions without consequence, and electing who you feel is the best person for office. Thank you for listening to my speech about what liberty means to me and what it may mean to other people.
Our nation of immigrants. The United States is said to be a nation of immigrants. Many people come to this country in search of a better lives for themselves and others. My name is Alexis de la Torre, and I'm an 8th grade student at Alta Loma. Welcome judges, parents, and fellow contestants. Today, I will be discussing how immigrants contribute to the unique fabric of the United States. Although immigrants contribute greatly, there are several misconceptions regarding immigrants. So many of my examples will shine a light as to why it is important for this nation to remain a nation of immigrants. Some benefits of having immigrants in the United States are in regards to population impact, business contributions, and diversity. In regards to population impact, America has seen a decline in births, and because the amount of deaths remain the same and more people are retiring, population has been slowing tremendously. Immigration levels have also decreased. In order to remain globally competitive with other countries and to maintain a working population, we must allow for immigrants to come into the United States. A steady population of immigrants helps grow the economy by filling labor needs, purchasing goods, which benefits businesses, and paying taxes. In 2015, immigrants contributed $20.9 billion in paying taxes and another $56.3 billion in spending money. Allowing individuals to enter into this country not only benefits the United States, but also allows for them to escape the hardships they face in their countries. When it comes to business contributions, there is a misconception that immigrants take jobs from Americans and drive wages lower because they work for less money. This is completely untrue. Immigrants open businesses at double the rate of Americans. Because of this, more jobs are created, and this boosts wages for native-born Americans. My grandfather is the perfect example. He was an immigrant when entering into this country, and while waiting to become a citizen, he opened a restaurant which became very successful. To my knowledge, he has approximately 40 employees, and because of his success, pays tens of thousands in taxes. Another great aspect to consider when discussing immigrants in the United States is diversity. Diversity is defined as a state of having people who are a different race or culture in a group or organization. Having so many different people also allows for us to have different foods, music, languages, and traditions. As of 2022, white Americans make up the majority of the population, representing 57% of the population. Hispanic and Latino Americans make up 19% of the population, and African Americans make up about 12% of the population, and Asian Americans make up close to 7% of the nation's overall population. Given all this information, I'd like for everyone to consider the benefits of having immigrants in the United States, and to remember that before we judge one another, we should consider that we've all had immigrants, family members come here as immigrants at one point. In closing, I would like to leave you with this quote by President Bill Clinton. More than any other nation on earth, the United States has constantly drawn strength and spirit from wave after wave of immigrants. In each generation, they have proved to be the most adventurous, the most restless, the most innovative, and the most industrious of people. Bearing different memories, honoring different heritage, they have renewed our promise of freedom and opportunity for all. Thank you.
Breaking news. You are the reason America is the way it is today. Theodore Roosevelt says this about America: this country will not be a good place for any of us to live in unless we make it a good place for all of us to live in. Good morning, judges and peers. My name is Laura Salazar. We as Americans have much responsibility to provide balance for our citizens, country, and government. Here is the reason why. Theodore Roosevelt's quote explains that Americans can't be self-centered because if that happens, our country will fall. This country is the way it is now because of us. Everything we do in this country affects our country. We will thrive if all Americans are caring and go out of their way to provide for other citizens. A quote that relates to Theodore Roosevelt's quote is Herbert Hoover's: "My country owes me nothing. It gave me, as it gives every boy and girl, a chance. It gave me schooling, opportunity for service and honor, and independence of action. In no other land could a boy from a country village without inheritance or influential friends look forward with unbounded hope." That was Herbert Hoover's quote. Hoover's quote shows the potential that America has. American citizens truly have a lot of responsibility for their country. We can make America a better place to live in. Helping the community will help America. America gave Hoover a chance. Everyone should be given a chance. Hoover was given eyes to look at his future positively. Everyone should be able to look at their future positively. A way to become a responsible citizen in America is serving on jury when summoned. Serving on jury trials prevents absolute power towards the government. You serving on jury will stabilize our government. This is legally required. Refusing will result in a fine and an unstable government. You provide unbiased views to make a trial fair for the citizen on trial. You being there gives an American citizen a chance, just like America gave Herbert Hoover a chance. Another thing we can do to repay and respect our country is to follow the law and pay our taxes. Obeying the law helps keep our country safe for all of us to live in. Just like in Theodore Roosevelt's quote, this country will not be a good place for any of us to live in unless we make it a good place for all of us to live in. Paying taxes funds important things like schools, protection, Medicare, and roads to give people like Herbert Hoover a chance in America. Overall, citizens provide stability towards our government, country, and other citizens in a positive way. Americans can't be self-centered. We can't grow on only ourselves, but with each other. Hoover showed us what America can be, so let's make it that way. A place of hope, chance, and power. And we can achieve that when we stand up and take responsibility by obeying the law, showing up to jury when summoned, and helping other citizens. Let's do what Theodore Roosevelt wanted our country to be, a great place for all of us to live in.
Cesar Chavez once said, "We cannot seek achievement for ourselves and forget about progress and prosperity for our community. Our ambitions must be broad enough to include the aspirations and needs of others for their sake and for our own." This is the heart that Cesar Chavez had. He did not fight solely for himself, but he also fought for everyone else that suffered from the exact same things that he did. Cesar Chavez changed the way things were done, without violence, but with peace, and with the goal to transform the lives of others and the lives of future generations to come. Good morning, judges, peers, fellow contestants, and audience members. Today I will be communicating with you today and just explaining and emphasizing everything that Cesar Chavez has done to help affect and help change the lives of Mexican-American farm workers. According to the Cesar Chavez Foundation, Cesar was a first-generation American. He was born on March 31st, 1927, in Yuma, Arizona. When Cesar was only 11 years old, his family lost their farm during the Great Depression and became traveling farm workers. After he completed his 8th grade education, Cesar started to fully work in the fields to be able to help support his family. Cesar traveled throughout California, working in the fields where he was exposed to the injustice that many farm workers faced in those days. Cesar joined the Navy in 1946 and served in the Western Pacific. He and a very special woman in his life named Helen, whom he met while working in the fields, spoke to one another while he was in the Navy. And once he was discharged, he and Helen were married, and they were blessed with 8 children and 31 grandchildren. During that time that Cesar Chavez was working in the farms, he and many others faced injustice, and it seemed as if equality was non-existent for these men and women. According to EJI.org, migrant workers lacked educational opportunities for their children. They lived in poverty and terrible housing conditions and faced discrimination and violence whenever they sought fair treatment. It was not right. It still is not right. It'll never be all right for any race, tongue, or people to receive or cause discrimination in one's life. So what did he do? Well, according to the Cesar Chavez Foundation, Cesar's career in community organizing began in 1952 when he was recruited and trained by Fred Ross, a legendary community organizer who was forming the San Jose chapter of the community service organization, the most prominent Latino civil rights group of its time. Cesar spent 10 years with the CSO, coordinating voter registrations, leading campaigns against racial and economic discrimination, and organizing new CSO chapters across California. But Cesar Chavez was not done, because on his 35th birthday, he resigned from the community service organization formerly known as the CSO, leaving the first real job that he's ever really had. And according to the Cesar Chavez Foundation, with only $1,200 in his life savings, he founded the National Farm Workers Association with only 10 members: Cesar, his wife, and their 8 young children. The NFWA later became the United Farm Workers of America. And under Cesar, the UFW achieved unprecedented gains from farm workers, establishing it as the first successful farm workers union in America. He also started the farm workers movement, which helped to overcome the burdens of poverty, discrimination, and powerlessness that people endured in the community. The effect and impact of Cesar Chavez's legacy is to be spoken of in depth, in order to fully grasp all that he has done. But I will say this: Cesar Chavez has helped and encouraged Mexican-American farm workers to prevail and overcome discrimination. He has made it better not just for Mexican-American farm workers, but for all farm workers of different races and nationalities. Freedom has been fought for by many, desired by all, but only truly gained by some, and that small, mighty, brave, courageous group of people have truly changed the world. And you may be thinking to yourself and asking, why, how, what made them so different that they were able to succeed? It's because the benefit was not restricted solely to them. Remember, Cesar Chavez once said, "We cannot seek achievement for ourselves and forget about the progress and prosperity of our community. Our ambitions must be broad enough to include the aspirations and needs of others for their sake and for our own. If we want to have a difference in our nation or in our own life, we must fight for it and take charge, not with violence or selfish mindsets and ambitions, because it's about the impact that we can have on others." Cesar Chavez also once said, "Once social change begins, it cannot be reversed. You cannot uneducate the person who has learned to read, and you cannot humiliate the person who feels pride. We have seen you cannot Oppress the people who are not afraid anymore. We have seen the future, and the future is ours. And with that same heart and mindset, I leave you with this. We are a team. We are America. We will stand strong and be a difference. Thank you.
Imagine how the United States would look like if Loma migrated to it. Everything would look completely different. Most of the things we know today would probably not even exist. This would all affect the operation of our life, way of life, and the knowledge we gain throughout our life drastically. Good morning, judges, guests, and fellow contestants. My name is MINA QASSIM. Now I know what most of you are wondering. MINA, how can immigrants affect anything other than population? Well, thinking that is entirely wrong. With more people comes more viewpoints, and with more viewpoints comes opinions. These opinions could come from a person's background, and when expressed could be very important. For example, this is shown in politics. Somebody could vote for someone who believes in what they believe in, while someone else could find that person unfit for that position. When this happens with multiple people who have multiple backgrounds, the person chosen at the end will be the most beneficial for our country. Since many people got a say. It is well known that when immigrants come to America, they bring along their cultures with them. When different people bring different cultures to the same place, others will surely know about them. There are so many things someone can do daily without realizing where they come from. Think about the food you eat, the clothes you wear, or even the items you use. There are over 59,000 Mexican restaurants and over 45,000 Chinese restaurants, while there are over 660,000 restaurants in total. That means that over 15% of all restaurants in the United States are just strictly Mexican or Chinese restaurants only. Many would describe America as the melting pot of different cultures, and I couldn't agree more. Every culture contributes to this unique and diverse country. Every family, every person. I remember I used to have a friend who had a different culture than mine. I was staying over while she had dinner. They came out with food I had never seen before, and my friend insisted I tried. I now still make that same exact dish after moving away and not talking to her for years. I think that was something truly beautiful because the same exact day I saw her apply something to her hand. That thing was something part of my culture, henna. When I asked her what it is, she told me that my mom taught her how to apply it. I didn't know back then, but I know now that when I stepped out of her house, I gave her a part of my culture while she gave me a part of hers. And I think that is something truly extraordinary. Every culture in America represents a door open, a door of traditions, holidays, customs. I am so grateful that I could partake in this country. Not only is it about trying new things, but it can just be simply about learning them. School is a big part of this. We learn about events in history. We study cultural pieces in art. We even learn languages. We were exposed to all these different lifestyles ever since we were young. We don't have to travel to know what living in a place is like. We exchange information just by being with each other. We are all different threads woven into the same fabric, different fruit blended into the same juice, different people living in the same country. We all have a hand in the way our lives work, what we do in them, and what we learn in them. Coming from somewhere else just adds on to that. After all, America didn't have to go outside to see more of the world, but had somebody bring the outside world to it.
Do you remember where you were April 28th, 2015? This day was a day of immense change in America. Hello, judges, guests, and fellow contestants. My name is Lauren Hott. On April 28th, groups of same-sex couples were in the Supreme Court arguing for their right to marry in all 50 states. I believe that the court was right to grant the marriage and that patriotism is fundamental to gain rights for the ideals of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The Supreme Court case was started by James Oderfield when his lawful marriage in another state wasn't recognized on his husband's death certificate. The suit went through to Ohio, Michigan, Kentucky, and Tennessee, who still hadn't made gay marriage legal. The The argument was that the bans in these states went against the 14th Amendment because it took away human rights. The 14th Amendment guaranteed everybody equal human rights, of which marriage was deemed a human right because it safeguards one of our most important relationships with another human being. You might wonder why I would still talk about a case from 6 years ago and why I would still talk about the rights of the community as well as the rights of myself as part of the community. And the answer is that changes are still needed. The case was only won by a 5-4 vote, and even in 2021, 77,490,000 American adults still don't support gay marriage. Throughout history, there is many groups of patriotic Americans who stood up for gay rights. One of these people was John Ward, or the first openly gay man to speak in front of the Supreme Court. He was the founder of the Gay and Lesbian Advocates and Defenders, as well as runs a telephone hotline. Another inspirational figure was Del Martin. She married her wife in the first legally gay marriage in America, and then went on to create the first lesbian rights group named the Daughter of Belitis. Lastly but not least, we have Harry Hay. He was the co-founder of the Matchson Society, the first gay rights group in America. And just as Harry Hay says, if you share my dream, why don't we walk together? The main counter-argument to the Supreme Court case was that the 14th Amendment does not directly go against the bans. It arises because they were not sure of the origins of the amendment. The amendment was written for the civil rights movement originally, but I believe that the 14th Amendment is fundamental to all equality in America, and that the origin of the amendment should not take away from the core values of giving every single American equal human rights. Patriotism is fundamental to gay rights. Our country is built on there being a problem, the people speaking out, and changes being made. When our founding fathers made this country, it was far from perfect. We still are. But we were given the opportunity to make change. Our First Amendment is freedom of speech, which is part of the reason why I love this country. It's the reason I am able to speak here today. We have seen this right enacted through history with women's rights and civil rights, starting with the people speaking out. With both of these examples, change did not come overnight, and people have to speak out to this day. It is important to never stop appreciating what has happened, as well as recognizing what still needs to be done. Patriotism is love for one's country. So don't you think that those who are patriotic would support their fellow Americans in their pursuit of happiness? I would like to leave you here today with the idea of respect for everyone, the idea of equality for everyone, the idea of a better place for everyone. And hopefully that will spark the passion of change. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, fellow ladies, gentlemen, and fellow contestants. The main issue I'm informing to you today is the importance of voting and how its history formed our society and nation now. Our story begins with a handful of visionaries, all with one thought in mind, the freedom of liberty, a thought and promise they held to their grave. And on that fateful year, 1776, one of the most important and crucial freedom was born, our freedom to vote. And even now, that freedom is still changing to this day. This key asset to democracy allows us as citizens to choose who will be able to uphold the nation's interests and stabilities of being a president and/or secretary of the United States. When voting was first established, the only people eligible to vote were white males who own land and/or white Christian males. Then, the 15th Amendment was ratified on February 3, 1870 by President Abraham Lincoln and stated that the rights of citizens of the United States shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state in the matter of race, color, or previous condition of servitude, which established a change of voting in our nation drastically. Following that, the 19th Amendment was ratified and allowed women to vote after they raised public awareness and protested to their favor. Lastly, the 26th Amendment was ratified in 1971 and stated that no citizen at least 18 years of age or older may be denied the right to vote on their subject of age. Nowadays, every American citizen can vote regardless of gender or race. With that knowledge and power, we make a significant impact to the United States. By voting, we are participating in a democratic process of choosing people to represent us and our country to make a better future for our nation. We've grown into a more diverse and widespread range of American citizens who have the right to vote, which our ancestors wish they'd have. American elections are the mechanism that keep the system democratic. By ensuring rules by the people, citizens of a representative democracy must use a democratic election to exercise their role in the nation, making them the majority of people in the representative democracy. So, to rephrase, the effect of voting in an American election signifies how the government democracy depends on all eligible members of each state to vote. All things considered, how would you use this right given to you now, seeing it in a new light? Will you take a stand on your beliefs and your ideas for a better future? Or will you be grateful and appreciate the time and effort of the hundreds of years of change it took to give you these rights now? Regardless of what you answered, voting is an important asset before and now that you and the whole country depend on to thrive, to become a better nation based on our beliefs for the future. I'm Diana JUCA, Sunset Heights, 8th grade. Thank you for listening.
Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Abraham Lincoln said this in his Gettysburg Address on November 19, 1863, after 2 years of fighting in the Civil War. A war that became known to many, including myself, as one of the most inspirational events in America's history, and one filled with brave soldiers who fought valiantly, sacrificing their lives for all mankind. In fact, the Civil War inspires me to sacrifice, love others, and to have faith. Think back to before the Civil War. Founding documents such as the Declaration of Independence and Constitution set expectations and put in motion a unique society that they envisioned would one day offer freedom and prosperity for all people. Abraham Lincoln believed this too, and that unity and abolishing slavery were something worth fighting for, no matter what the cost. In fact, according to History.com, Abraham Lincoln chose to fight with the soldiers and almost died during the war. Thankfully, that did not happen, because nearly 150 years after Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, freeing all of the slaves, my African-American grandfather has rights. Honorably and filled with pride for this wonderful country, he served in the U.S. Air Force. My father, an immigrant from Germany, also served in the Air Force, and my brother will soon be joining them. They, like many before, sacrificed everything to bring unity, equality, and peace throughout the nation. The men who chose to fight with Abraham Lincoln did this because of the love they felt for their fellow man and God himself. When Abraham Lincoln came into office, he was able to inspire people to care about others. He saw people as just people. The founding fathers built this nation on the ideas of God, and Abraham Lincoln wanted to restore that. So, as the commander-in-chief, he set forth to do so. God's will of having everyone treated with dignity, his primary motivation. This brotherly love in the Civil War is what drove people to have faith in each other and God Himself. One that I too carry. As for my faith, I hope to walk with God. Use Him to comfort me like He did with Abraham Lincoln. Mark 3:25 says, "If a house is divided against itself, that house cannot stand." Abraham Lincoln believed that would happen to the nation, so he wanted to follow God's instructions. The Union soldiers had faith in Abraham Lincoln, that he would lead them to freedom, lead them and to a future that is bright, a future for us. For my faith, it has stayed strong the past 12 years, and I hope I can stay faithful like the Union soldiers, following God's words. All in all, the Civil War inspires me to sacrifice, love others, and to have faith. I cannot help but think back to the Gettysburg Address, how Lincoln quoted the Declaration of Independence saying, "87 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal, even my grandfather."
Welcome, fellow Americans. My name is DANICA DWORSHAK. Harry S. Truman stated, "America is not built on fear. America is built on courage, on imagination, and an unbeatable determination to do the job at hand." What does America mean to you? To me, being an American is what everyone dreams of becoming because of one word that is desired by all: freedom. America means freedom to me because of our constitutional rights, our brave military, and the land of opportunity. To begin, our founding fathers provided us with a U.S. document that still today embodies freedom. On September 17th, 1787, 39 brave delegates signed the Constitution out of 55. Our country was built on this document, our United States Constitution. What was the cost for our freedom? They risked everything they had to build a new nation, the United States of America. They realized that the loss of freedom was worse than death. In addition, in 1791, 10 amendments were added known as our Bill of Rights. This was significant because they protect us with 5 main freedoms: speech, religion, press, assembly, and the right to petition the government. To this day, our right to freedom are more important than ever before and continue to need to be stood up and fought for. Equally important is our brave military men and women who sacrifice their life every day to fight to protect our freedoms and keep us safe. When I say the Pledge of Allegiance or hear the national anthem sung, I'm reminded that the freedoms we enjoy every day come at a cost because of the selfless acts our military has endured. Many of us in this very room have lost a loved one or know of someone that served for their love of this country. As Americans, we feel the pain from deep inside us of what families go through at military funerals. We can envision watching their loved ones being carried in draped American flag coffins, hearing the trumpets playing taps, the final salute of shots fired, the color guard making each precise fold in the flag, followed by giving the family our American flag as an expression of gratitude. They are true heroes, and I am grateful they'll never be forgotten for defending the freedoms we have today. Lastly, America stands for freedom to me because it is the land of opportunity. In America, we have so many opportunities of freedoms most countries don't have that we often take for granted. For instance, in Saudi Arabia, there is gender inequality. Women must obtain permission from their male guardian to do any sort of major task, including marriage, divorce, travel, education, and employment. They are also discriminated in the workforce, accounting for only 17% of the working industry. We are, unlike any other country, we are fortunate to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. For example, freedom to choose what religion I want to believe in, decide on which college I would like to attend, the profession of my choice, to marry, have children, and the many other choices that lie ahead of me. We must always stay true to our freedoms while respecting other citizens' decisions and opinions, putting our differences aside, because dividing us, we become weak. By staying together, we will remain strong. In all, America is my home and means freedom to me. We have our constitutional rights, our brave military, and this land of opportunity to thank for that. Remember, freedom comes with a cost. You must fight for it every day. Ronald Reagan said it best. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. Or one day, we will spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it was once like in the United States where men were free. Meaning we owe it to past, current, and future Americans to ensure our freedoms will always remain the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Imagine you own a golf course in Arizona. The government wants water to be saved as the state is in a water crisis. But you use lots of water to make your course green. So do you keep watering or do you sacrifice and help your community save for the future? Hello parents, judges, and fellow contestants. My name is Seth Booker, and I'm proud to live in a country where our individual rights are protected by the Constitution. However, I believe that when the safety of citizens is at risk, the common good should outweigh these individual rights. If this would happen, we could solve problems more quickly, become a stronger nation, and serve the world as a good role model. Don't get me wrong, we need our individual rights. The Founding Fathers did not want an oppressive government ruling over the people. They wanted citizens to have a life of their choosing, protected by the Constitution. The Bill of Rights, made up of the first 10 amendments, secure individual rights. Most importantly, the freedoms of speech, religion, press, assembly, and the right to bear arms. These rights are essential to our democracy. As Ayn Rand said, the smallest minority on earth is the individual. Those who deny individual rights cannot claim to be the defender of the minorities. However, we tend to forget that in order to be the defender of the minorities, the government needs cooperation from the minorities. When there is a crisis that needs to be solved, people become all too defensive of their individual rights. They refuse to cooperate and help solve the problem because it requires sacrifice on their part. But imagine all our country could achieve if people were more willing to yield some rights to the common good. In 1863, the Union Army desperately needed men to serve in the brutal battles of the Civil War. Therefore, President Abraham Lincoln issued a draft, which legally required all healthy young men to join the fighting. Because these people sacrificed their freedom of choice for the nation, the Union prevailed. Since then, drafts have been used by America to help us succeed in many of our wars. Drafts are one example of how personal sacrifice for the common good can keep us safe and help solve our nation's problems. As Barbara Jordan claimed, a nation is formed by the willingness of each of us to share in the responsibility for upholding the common good. Think of our nation's motto, E pluribus unum, and of many, one. We are not just individuals, but Americans. Americans who need to work together to help their community and their country. As patriots, it is our job to obey when asked to render certain rights to make the country stronger and safer. Indeed, state governments have passed laws that limit individual rights for the sake of health and safety. In some states, it is required to wear a helmet while on a motorcycle. In others, you can't smoke indoors. And nearly every state have laws requiring seatbelt use. These laws may seem to restrict individual rights,
but they have been scientifically proven to lower the risk of injury and death. So to ensure the safety of our citizens, these rights were restricted. To make our country stronger and safer, citizens and governments must work together. We may be many, but we are also one. One group of united Americans who need to work for the common good. The USA is a world superpower that many nations look up to. In order to ensure a better world, we need to be a good role model. We need to show the world that Americans care more about the well-being of their nation than their own rights. Let's lead by example and be willing to make sacrifices when necessary. Individual rights are the foundation of our government. They're worth fighting for and even dying for. But there are times in our nation when we're called upon to put the common good ahead of the individual. Now is one of those times. We have the opportunity to sacrifice certain rights to make the country healthier and safer. If we do, we can solve problems more quickly, become a stronger nation, and serve the world as a good role model. As Saul Alinsky said, people cannot be free unless they are willing to sacrifice some of their interests to guarantee the freedom of others. The price of democracy is the ongoing pursuit of the common good by all of the people. Thank you.